Welcome, everybody. Hello. Happy Monday to you. We're coming in live from New York. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. So glad to be here with my friend Kishore. Achyuta Gopi is not able to join us today. So we got Kishore last week. At the end, we didn't have Kishore. Now we don't have Achyuta. We just swapped them out. How are you this morning, Kishore? We had a busy weekend this weekend.
We had a busy weekend, and last week I missed everyone. I was a bit sick. My voice still sounds kind of different, but I feel a lot better, even though I still sound a little different. I feel a lot better.
He's feeling a lot better.
Um,
And 2 negative COVID tests along the
three,
way.
three
Three.
negative COVID.
Three
Yeah,
negative COVID tests.
yesterday.
So it's
Yesterday I
it's
was feeling.
just the flu or sinus. People did get just normally sick before
I
COVID.
know you were telling me that yesterday in our car ride back, and I was because yesterday I was feeling really rough because I guess I was just exhausted. And I was like, how can I not have COVID? I must have COVID. Like I was telling myself in my mind. And I took my third test and I was like, nope, I don't have COVID. I'm just sick. I just have like a normal flu or the normal cold or something. I don't know.
Disease did exist and still does.
And still does.
Still does. Well, glad that you're with us. We've been reading from The Journey Within, and we started reading this section. It's the beginning of a chapter, chapter 7, and The Journey Within. For those that are tuning in, if this is your first time with us, welcome. We normally, till now, we sort of muse upon spiritual topics that arise in our minds and hearts each morning. It's just kind of your daily check-in. And last week we started reading from The Journey Within, which is a sort of a treatise on the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti Yoga as taught in the Vedic tradition, and The Journey Within by Ranat Swami. And we started reading chapter 7. We've been doing these different excerpts. And page 111, if you have your book, if you have a book, page 111 in the hard copy, and practicing the Dharma of Bhakti. And we just read one paragraph, me and Achyuta, and then we just kind of went on a discussion. And we thought we would just read that paragraph again just to give us some context and then flow from there and see how far we get.
Beautiful. Okay, great. I shall read our paragraph to remind us of the context and read a bit more.
I mean, this might just become the standard of the podcast. We just read this one paragraph every day and we never get past it.
So, practicing the Dharma of Bhakti. And it says from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 30, it starts with this beautiful verse. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. And Radhanath Swami writes, Dharma comes from the Sanskrit root dhr, meaning to hold, maintain, or keep. And by extension, in its noun form, that which cannot be taken away, because it is firmly part of something. Think of Dharma as a thing's inherent quality, that part of something that cannot be separated from it, the heat and fire or the sweetness and sugar, for example. If we want to follow knowledge to its source and pursue spiritual enlightenment, understanding the meaning and practice of Dharma is invaluable. Bhakti Yoga teaches that the Dharma of every living being is seva, or loving service. This means that loving service is the essential nature of the soul. Practicing Bhakti Yoga is about honoring the soul's Dharma and focusing on transforming material actions into spiritual ones. Imagine two people studying or cooking or paying bills or painting. One person is acting in harmony with the true self, trying to please God, and the other for some selfish material purpose. From the outside, the results may appear to be the same, but these two sets of actions are actually generating different outcomes. One person is becoming progressively free from the pull of matter on the path to liberation, and the other is sowing the karmic seeds of his or her bondage to temporary pleasures and pains. I really, really, really like this paragraph.
What's your
Well, I just got reminded, Dayal and I, we did a kirtan training this weekend, And I feel like a lot of these topics came up in our kirtan training. Actually, someone specifically asked this question in our kirtan training this weekend.
Mm.
She was asking, like, because there's this verse. I'll give a little context, but not get too much into it. There's these beautiful verses, specifically about our kirtan practice or our chanting practice, written by a saint, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's this one verse where he's speaking about kind of the intention, or the really the nature of the heart. And he's saying to Krishna, he's saying, I actually don't want any riches. I don't want any beauty. I don't want any high, education or any high status in society. Like, I just want this eternal relationship. And this paragraph is speaking about the nature of the soul being loving service to a higher power or higher energy. And so Sri Chaitanya is saying, like, I don't want any of this material stuff. I don't want any of this stuff. I just want this loving relationship that I have with you. And I don't want anything in return. Right. And so we were talking a lot about this during our training. And one of the participants was asking, like, you know, I understand that. Like, I get the sentiment of like not wanting anything, but like, can't we like use stuff in service? Like, can't we use things in service to the divine or to higher power? Like, can I do that? And that's exactly what this paragraph is talking about, which is such an interesting concept in Bhakti Yoga, that Radhanath Swami is saying, like, two people can be doing the same exact thing, washing the dishes or cooking or paying the bills or etc. But the mindset in which you're doing them is going to produce different results. And so, like, intention is such a powerful, powerful thing. And it's so interesting because this same person, I'm thinking of the same person in the training, and I always like to say this, she was saying like how it's been helpful for her to move away from like these black and white thinking of like, this is good or this is bad. If you're coming from like a Christian, Judeo-Christian kind of background, I come from that background. There's a lot, and you were talking about this yesterday, Daya. There's a lot of emphasis on like that the soul is tainted. Like, originally the soul is tainted. There's this like original sin, or there's this like something is wrong with us from birth, and we have to kind of mend that, right, to be able to have a relationship with God. And I really, really love here that Radhanath Swami is saying, like, actually, the nature of the soul, like the supreme nature of the soul, is this loving service, the Dharma. And in the past paragraph, right before, it's like that Dharma, meaning that which cannot be taken away. So that which cannot be taken away of the soul is like this loving, eternal service relationship with higher power. And what we're doing is we're just trying to uncover that. And depending on our mindset in how we perform actions, it's either going to help us get back to that true nature more, or it's going to sow us deeper into karmic reactions. And that's why I always like to say, in terms of bhakti yoga, it's like, it's less of like, this is evil and this is, good and etc. Because in Bhagavad Gita, and sorry, I'm going on a rant, but this
Rant
paragraph
it.
made me really excited. In
You got to
Bhagavad
make up
Gita,
for
it
lost
says,
time. We haven't had you here in a couple days.
I do. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, it explains the different, um, what's it called, modes of material nature. And so, not to get into that too much into that, but there's this mode of action, or they call it passion, of just like doing, right? If you've ever been to a big city or like New York City, you feel it. It's like a production oriented, always doing. There's the mode of tamas, or kind of, it's called ignorance or darkness, or you can think of like inertia, just like sleep and indolence and like this. And then there's the mode of sattva, which is sometimes translated to the mode of goodness, but literally means the mode of beingness. It's the quality of being. And it's interesting because a lot of times we think like, well, I have to be good, right? I have to be good. I have to be good. I have to succeed. I have to do all the right things. I have to be good to get somewhere in life. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how each of these modes, or each of these, have their own flavor of attachment, right? We can become attached into, how Radhanath Swami is saying here, the karmic seeds of bondage. I love the way he puts it. to temporary pleasures and pains. Like we can become attached in all three of these different things. So it's not necessarily like I'm over here doing good and therefore I'm a good, perfect spiritualist. You're over here doing bad because you're, I don't know, like smoking a cigarette. So that means you're evil and you're going to hell. It's like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. And I really love that because he really dissects it so simply in just a few sentences. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm done. Ran over.
No, keep it rolling. I You mentioned, the Dharma, that which cannot be taken away, which is always there. And I think one of the questions that also came up yesterday in our kirtan training was the idea of worthiness and being worthy. And we have a lot of this rhetoric in spiritual cultures and traditions and communities and practices, the idea of making and it feels in a way with all the practices, whether it's, you've got the Ten Commandments in Judeo-Christianity, you've got the yamas and the niyamas in the yoga tradition, you've got, whatever it may be, various tenets and things to do it to make spiritual advancement. And that can sometimes get confused with making ourselves worthy. Like, and I love the idea of Dharma because it communicates the idea that the soul is never really tainted. Who you are is never removed or can never be lost. It can just be covered or forgotten or smudged over with a bunch of other things. And we were using the example of a diamond. Um, and I think that it brings in a sense of I mean, I look at it in terms of my life, of trying to, we ask this question of like, who am I in this world? Like we know we're an eternal spirit soul, but of wanting to be able to like make something of myself in this world. Um, and that can create a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety and a lot of hustle, that many of us
Mm,
go through. And I think that this, and we bring that consciousness into spiritual life. Like I gotta hustle in spiritual life in order to make it. Like I really gotta hustle and do all the things and make sure that I'm on the right program. Otherwise, I'm not gonna make it spiritually. And I think that, that idea of that you'll never miss your boat is in the dock waiting for you. I think that relates to spirituality also. Like your soul is in the dock, like you're never going to miss it. It's just a matter of time until you want to get serious enough to get around to it. But it's not a process of making yourself worthy or making me worthy enough. Like I've never lost to myself. And Krishna, he says it here, for one who sees
mm,
every Bhagavad Gita, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor are they ever lost to me. And so, yeah, I was just kind of appreciating because I feel like that's a soothing reminder that many of us
mm,
need in times of when we feel that if I'm not up to standard, I'm going to be rejected or lost, or I didn't make the mark, or I didn't get in enough. And whether it's, we bring that trying to apply to college and get into the right
mm,
school. I'm trying to apply to a job and get into the right job. I'm trying to, um, be a certain way in order for somebody to like me, trying to
mm,
build a certain number of followers, and like all of these things we got to do, the formulas that are there,
mm,
using the right hashtags and SEO and all of those things. And it's just like that just doesn't apply to spiritual life.
mm,
Like that mentality and consciousness just does not apply to spiritual life. And we got to be careful not to bring our material consciousness into our spiritual practices,
mm,
because your dharma is inexorable from who you are.
mm. Yeah. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about how this is not a plug, everyone, although it kind of is, but it's
We're
not.
gonna plug it. Get your notebooks down. Get your checkbooks out. We're plugging. We're going on a digital
Well,
detox next week.
yeah, we're going on a digital
This
detox, and
week.
we've this week, and we've done it before. We've done it like 2 times before, and that's the reason why it kind of comes up while you were speaking, because we basically just go upstate. We do this little retreat, 2 full
Mm,
days and like 2 half days, and we have people hand in their devices, like their phones and their Apple watches and their
Hand it
tablets and their
over.
computers and like everything, like just all of their devices were just like handed in. And it's so crazy how once you strip away all of the stuff, all of the devices, and there's, I'm thinking of this word, kind of things that we're using to kind of maybe look for that validation, like you were saying, Taya, like we're using to be busy, to be successful, to get the likes, to build the things, to find all of that stuff that's going to supposedly build us up. And it's not saying that any of those things are bad. You know, obviously I'm using my computer to apply for a program that I really want to get to. This is great. Or a university or like whatever. That's wonderful. I think what really becomes the issue, and I love how Rannath Swami is speaking about the mindset or the intention in the heart, is that like if that seeking of whatever sort of prestige is replacing or cover or further covering my heart, right? If it's further covering my eternal dharma, then that's when it starts to become a problem, right?
Hmm.
If all I'm doing is like looking for that validation in those hashtags or college applications or job things or like whatever, if that's all that I'm doing, then it's a problem. And that's why these things like a digital detox are so powerful, because it just very dramatically removes all of that, and it's just you, like it's just you, you know, it's just you and nature and higher power. And it's so crazy because we've seen it time and time again where people have such a transformational experience because it's so it's so simple, yet at the same time kind of complicated. Like when we're here in the city, it feels so complicated to like get off your phone. You were making this joke yesterday, Dale, of like every day at the end of the day, your phone is like, you've spent an extra 4 hours, totaling 10 hours on your phone today. And you're like, what? Like, what?
How did that happen?
How did this happen? What have I done? What have I done today?
What have I
And
done
it's
with my
like,
life?
and it's crazy because like when we're in the city, it seems so hard. It's like so hard to put it down, put the phone down, you know? But when you go out to nature, when you just like take a break, it's like, wow, actually it's so simple. It's so simple to
Hmm.
just be with myself. And even though it might be scary, I think that's the hard part. It's like sometimes it can be scary to let go of all the things that we're using to kind of move away from that eternal nature. But when we take a break from it, it becomes quite simple.
Hmm.
Mm,
I was just writing about that this morning because I was reminded of this concept that is common in ACOA and Al-Anon 12-step programs called the inner drugstore.
mm,
And the idea that there's a phrase that we become addicted to excitement in all our affairs, and the inner drugstore being that place where we reach for some sort of experience that catapults us out of the present moment. You know, the
mm,
opposite of addiction is sometimes defined as connection. The opposite of
mm,
addiction is connection, and therefore, um, you know, addiction is that button that's an attempt for connection, but it's a faulty attempt. And so this sense of like I do believe that we as a society and individuals have become addicted to stimulation and sensation. And if something doesn't grab our attention immediately, we move on,
mm,
you know. If something doesn't, and it was also because I was relating it to this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, and I'll pull it up real quick. It was from the 5th chapter, 11th verse. The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even the senses only for the uh, only for the purpose of spiritual elevation,
mm,
only for the purpose of purification. So the yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification or spiritual elevation. And I was seeing that abandoning attachment, yet still acting with my body, mind, and my intelligence. And how for me it was a petition or a reminder to be steady in
mm,
my resolve, regardless of how exciting it may or may not seem to be all the time,
mm,
regardless of how sexy it may feel all the
mm,
time, regardless if everything seems post worthy or share worthy, because the tendency is that as soon as the romance dies down, or as soon as the excitement seems to wear off, or as soon as it doesn't seem to be getting, like, it's not the attention grabber that it once was, I start to question
Mm,
its value. And I
mm,
start to, like, it becomes this sense of I'm just constantly in the beginning of something without seeing something through. And yes, some things definitely are as valid that it's not working anymore, move on. But when it becomes this chronic sense of I'm just chasing the feeling of excitement,
mm,
I'm not going to get deep anywhere. And I think spiritual life gets that way also. It's like we just think we're supposed to be on this spiritual high all the time, and we're not. That's not just how it works. Like, there's purification that takes place, there's growth that's involved, there is uncovering of truths, and there is letting go of things that no longer serve us, and all of that, like, tumbles around in this cycle of excitement and seeming boredom and simplicity and complexity. And I think that when I read this verse of abandoning attachment, meaning that, like, this idea of dharma sometimes is translated as duty.
mm,
And so I'm going to learn the art of responsibility. I'm going to learn the art of applying myself consistently in a dedicated way, so that I can move past this over addiction to stimulation. I'm going to move past just responding to whatever shiny piece of tinsel comes across my way and knocks me off track.
mm,
Um, so that I can get to this place of, and the word used here is shudhaya. Shudha
mm,
means, transcendental, like, we use the word shuddha sattva, like you're
mm,
talking about, like pure transcendental purification. And so um yeah, I was kind of relating it to that sense. And you were, as you were mentioning, the digital detox is that opportunity for us to sort of just tone down the stimulation a little bit.
mm.
And I
Yeah.
think that allowing that to shine forth, and so it's a great question for all of us, is like, where do I create space for just, like, not being stimulated all the time?
Mm, yeah. Yeah. That's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, very like I experience that a lot in my life. My personality is
Yeah.
very my personality is very, like, I like nice things and nice experiences and nice people and fun times. And for those of you that know the Enneagram, I'm like an Enneagram type 7, which, like, the whole thing of the Enneagram type 7 is just like chasing after exciting experiences and enjoying life and doing things. And a lot of my youth, I was saying this yesterday, a lot of my youth, like, I traveled all over the world. I traveled all over the world. I was living in, like, so many different countries. I still don't know how I did it to this day. I was just, like, all over the place. And I don't remember in what context I said this yesterday in the kirtan training, but I really started to feel this to be true as I got older. That, like, no matter what high I'm chasing, no matter what situation I end up in, of the next thing, right? Like the next cool thing, the next person, the next experience, no matter what country I'm in, no matter what it is, I'm still the same person actually. Like, I'm still me, with my memories, with my karma, with my problems, with my traumas, with all of the stuff that I have to figure out. And no amount of, like, high chasing and internet validation and, like, globe trotting is going to fix it. It's not going to help actually, because it's actually just, I'm actually approaching it in the opposite way. Well, let me just cover up all these problems with more experiences and more fun and more things and more people and more stuff, and it'll just go away. It's like, no, actually, yoga is telling us the opposite. It's actually, we have to simplify, we have to uncover, we have to dig,
Mm,
we have to dig to find that shining heart underneath all of that. And it's so interesting because that simplicity can sometimes be really scary for people. I know it was for me, like starting to really simplify things and just move away from that chasing the high, chasing the stimulus, chasing the pleasure, and kind of just like sitting with yourself and being with yourself. I think I've mentioned this before, but I remember I used to go to therapy, um, and I should go back again because therapy is great.
Let's all go back to
And
therapy.
let's all go back to therapy. And my therapist used to tell me something, and I hated it. I hated it. He used to tell me like, you really have to like learn how to just like be with your feelings. And I was like, what? I was like, no, I don't want to do that. He's like, you have to like sit with them and be with them and experience them. And I remember when he first told me, I was like, what do you even mean by that? Like, what does that mean? And he was like, well, like sit with it. And if you feel sadness, like give yourself 10 minutes to just like sit with the sadness and feel it. And if you need to cry, cry. And I was like, the first time he told me that, I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I will not be doing that. I will continue doing as I'm doing. And it was so annoying because he kept on telling me, like, you really have to. And even to this day, my acupuncturist, I brought him up before, but acupuncturist is like kind of my acupuncturist slash very good friend slash therapist. And he tells me the same thing. He's like, you just have to just like be with yourself and know that you have the ability and the capability. And I think that this is for everyone. We all have the ability and capability to just like be with ourselves. And sometimes we get scared because there's so much stuff there and there's so much stuff that we have to, whatever, deal with. But it's a lot, the more and more that I live this life, the more I realize like it's a lot simpler than we think, of just kind of just like uncovering, moving to the side all of the stuff that's getting in the way of my deeper connection. And that's why kirtan, I'm wearing Thursday night kirtan. This is also not a plug, folks, but I'm wearing our
It's a definite plug.
this is our Thursday night kirtan at the Bhakti Center shirt. But that's why kirtan is such a powerful experience, because it's a space to come in and be like, you know what, I'm going to leave behind all that stuff, all of the narratives, all of the problems, all of the work drama, all of that stuff, and I'm just going to be with myself and with Krishna, with my higher power. And I'm just going to come into this experience wholehearted and just see what happens. And so much of kirtan, I think even in kirtan, you were speaking to this, and I know we're coming to time. Even to kirtan, there's this mindset sometimes of like it has to be perfect, or it has to sound a certain way, or it has to look like this. And for me, what bhakti is why it's so
Mm,
powerful, it's just like actually it's saying like, no, actually that's not what we're saying. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be in this way. In this prayer, Sri Chaitanya that I brought up at the beginning is saying there are no hard and fast rules. There are
mm,
no hard and fast rules to this process of bhakti yoga, to this process of chanting, right? So it doesn't have
mm.
to like fit into this beautiful, perfect spiritual box. Actually, your nature, the nature of the heart, is already that beautiful connection with divinity. So it's
Yeah.
more about just uncovering and simplifying.
Mm. Love it, love it. There's a lot there, and I think that this theme this week can be this idea of simplifying and uncovering to allow our natural light to shine rather than feeling like I don't need to add more light in my life. I just need to simplify it to let the natural light shine. There's a lot there. We're out of time. We've got our trusted note taker, Kimberly. If there's any special hashtags or takeaways that you'd like to give to us, and if anybody in our live virtual studio audience wants to share anything, please type it in. We'll read it out loud and see what's there. And then we'll look at our takeaways, and then we'll send ourselves on our way.
So today I have: spirituality is not a process of making ourselves worthy enough. We are already enough and worthy, and our soul is never tainted and it can never be lost. It just gets uncovered or forgotten sometimes. And the mindset and intention we bring into, the things we do can help us uncover our soul and then move towards our true nature. And then we don't need to bring the hustle mentality into spiritual life.
Hmm.
Being steady in our resolve means that we continue our work regardless of the excitement or romance we feel. And then lastly, simplify your life and let the light shine in.
Hmm. Thank you, Kimberly. What's one thing you're walking away, taking into your life, Kishore?
Simplifying and slowing down. I feel like
Hmm.
in a city, like New York or just in any kind of modern society, city, whatever, like it's kind of a revolutionary act to slow down and to just like notice things. So I'm gonna try to slow down a bit and simplify.
Simplify is my takeaway as well. I'm not good at it. I'm good at saying it. Um, but I think that, yeah, just the idea of trusting that I don't need to do more in order to get what I'm looking for.
Mm.
So thank you all so much. We love you. Grateful for all of you. Please be well. Take care. Tune in tomorrow. We'll see you again soon. Bye bye, everybody.